Okay, well, this was not a video that I had any thought of making at the beginning of this year or all the way up until April. And I'm not quite sure how to start it out, except that I'm sure you will notice by the title what this announcement is that I'm going to be making. And that is that we are expecting our third baby in January. So it's very crazy. I found out when my second daughter was only 7 months old that I was pregnant. Currently, I am about 17 weeks along, but probably by the time I have this video out, I'll be more close to about 20, which is really exciting. So I'm almost halfway there. We were not planning to have a third baby so close to our second. And so I'll be honest, it's been an adjustment. It's something I'm still adjusting to a bit mentally, and I really haven't even started to think too much about the logistics of having our kids so close together. I'm really excited to be kicking through this stage, honestly, because I have found the baby stage to be the hardest stage thus far in raising children, for sure. And so as intimidating as it is, and as I'm sure wild as the next year will probably be, I'm also really excited to be one pregnancy closer to probably being done. And I'm really excited to have another little kid in our family. So all that being said, I wanted to make that announcement, and then I want to talk about 3 different things that I've learned here on my third pregnancy since my first pregnancy that have made such a huge difference and are just really, I think, important things to know about if you are pregnant, or if you're thinking about getting pregnant, or if you are trying to get pregnant, or if you have any intention to be pregnant someday. So with that being said, if you're a guy, I don't recommend you watch this next part of the video, because I'm going to be talking about pregnancy and different things to do to help, and it's going to be a little bit it's going to be a little descriptive, I guess, because I want it to actually be helpful. And I want you to be able to save your money and not have to go and pay for the things I've had to pay for my last pregnancy to keep my body working well. So with that being said, you all have your warning. The first thing I want to talk about is nausea. So with Carrie, my oldest, who's 3, I was super sick and felt awful until about 17 weeks. It was just a nightmare, and I felt like I could just hardly function, and it didn't help that at that time I was working at a restaurant, and so I just felt terrible all the time, and I was completely exhausted. And then 2.5 years after Carrie was born, I had Cassie, and with Cassie's pregnancy, for the first 11 weeks, it was the same type of deal, except I was even more exhausted, and I was trying to chase around the toddler, and I just felt horrible, and I was so beat. I would just sleep. My goal was to clean out the dishwasher, do 1 load of laundry, try and make my husband dinner if I could muster up the strength to not barf as I was cooking, and keep my toddler from dying. And that was basically the first 3 months of my last pregnancy. And then I heard about milk thistle, which is a herb that cleans out your liver, and I heard that it was supposed to help with nausea, and so I started taking it, and I was shocked because almost instantly, around 11 or 12 weeks of that pregnancy, I started to feel better, and my energy slowly started to come back, and I just didn't feel sick all the time. And so the moment I found out that I was pregnant with our third, and that we were in the middle of working on a house that we're remodeling, and that we have 2 little kids I'm trying to keep up with, I was like, yeah, I can't do my previous pregnancies. I have to try and get control of this nausea. And so I instantly went to the store and started taking milk thistle. It was crazy. I've wondered if I was pregnant with a boy, just because I felt so much better. I haven't felt this sickness nearly as bad. It's been 10% or less of what it was in my previous pregnancies. But then also, maybe because I haven't felt so sick, I've had a lot more energy. So I'd still take a nap during the day, the first trimester or so, some days, but there are days where I was able to make it through without even a nap, which is crazy, not like any other pregnancy I've experienced. So in those ways, this pregnancy has definitely felt like the easiest one, even though it's my third, which is really cool. So I highly recommend Milk Thistle. I don't know if it works for all women the same, but if you do have any problems with your liver and you need your liver to be cleaned out and purified so you're not so nauseous, I really recommend Milk Thistle, and I even recommend that you start taking it before you find out that you're pregnant. I hope and I pray that it works as good with you as it has with me, because it has made this pregnancy feel so much more doable, and the thought of if we try for a 4th baby just has made that pregnancy seem like, okay, this is probably something I can do. So that is my tip. Try Milk Thistle and see if it works as well for you as it has for me. It's been a huge blessing in this pregnancy, and it's really helped me get through while still chasing around 2 little kids. So that's my first tip. My second tip I want to talk about is diastasis recti. And for my first pregnancy, plus half of my next pregnancy, I didn't even know how to say the words, but diastasis recti is when your abs separate. Now you think about it, your belly gets really big and your abs start to pull apart, and I know that some women's abs immediately kind of come back together after pregnancy, or maybe they don't even completely separate during pregnancy. And I thought on my first pregnancy, like, there's no way I'll have problems with that. I'm fit, I'm healthy. I didn't get super big with my first pregnancy. And so I didn't really do anything that the midwife recommended that I not do in order to not have my abs pull so far apart. So I was shocked after I had my first baby to discover that I could stick my hand completely into my stomach, like this, completely into my stomach with my abs on both sides. I could stick it up and down, like probably this far up and down. Just my abs were completely pulling apart. And so I realized there was something to what the chiropractor and the midwives had told me. So after that pregnancy was over and I'd had Carrie, my first, I focused a lot on trying to heal up my abs. And at first I did way too hard of core exercises and actually made them worse. And then I really started focusing on just laying on my back with my knees up, doing toe taps super lightly, and focusing instead on any of the strength of lifting up your legs or anything, just focusing on pulling my abs back together, and that helped a lot. So then when I got pregnant with Cassie, what I stopped doing that helped a ton was I stopped sitting directly up in bed or doing any of those type of movements that actually you can feel your abs being kind of separated in the process of doing those movements. And then I ended up having to go into a pelvic floor therapist because I was having so much pain my last pregnancy, right after about 14 weeks, and it just progressed until about 30 weeks when I finally started going in and seeing a therapist, because I could just hardly stand up. I could hardly lift anything without just feeling like, honestly, just feeling so much pressure. It was the most uncomfortable, painful thing. And so the therapist started teaching me how to do these exercises with your breathing, where you focus on just with your breathing on when you breathe in, you completely relax your body, and when you breathe out, you pull your abs in. And it doesn't sound like it would work, and I had no faith that it would work, but I started doing this when I was about 30 weeks pregnant with Cassie. And rather than my abs continuing to separate, even in my pregnancy, I believe they started to go back together, which was crazy, because after my pregnancy with Cassie, I had like 2 fingers of a gap going sideways, and maybe 3 fingers or 2 fingers going down, which was completely different than my first pregnancy. And I give all the credit to those breathing exercises that you can do throughout your entire pregnancy, and just focusing on not like sitting up so quickly and making those really aggressive movements with your abs when you're pregnant and your abs are just weaker. So that's my second tip, to really focus on your abs. And my third tip that I'm going to be talking about is your pelvic floor. I was just kind of unaware of this entire really important set of muscles in my body until, like I mentioned, I was pregnant with Cassie, and about 14 weeks into the pregnancy, it felt like a 20-pound weight was just setting, I guess, in the bottom of like my bladder just all the time, and it was so painful, and I would have to just sit down and try and rest to be able to continue to work, because once again we were doing just tons of physical labor. And so finally, it did get so bad I was afraid that I would have a really bad prolapse with my birth, and so I went into a pelvic floor therapist, which is something I never thought I would have to do, and sure enough, I had a 1-degree prolapse already. And so it was amazing, because just within about a 6-week period that they worked with me in 3 different sessions, I went completely to feeling back to normal, which was crazy because I was right towards the end of my pregnancy. I was still doing a lot of physical labor, and I had just felt awful for the last couple of months. And so with all that being said, I really recommend, if you have any of those starting symptoms of just a lot of pressure or pain, to either go into a pelvic floor therapist, or I'm very confident that you can just look up, probably on YouTube, different exercises to do. So they just gave me 4 different exercises to do, and I would do them every single day while I drove to our remodel to work. And I did them for, it probably took me 3 minutes. And so I'm continuing to do this. Every time I drive somewhere, I've made it a habit to practice this just for a couple of minutes. It's this breathing exercise, but you also focus on pulling up your pelvic floor muscles. And so I'm not gonna go into a ton of details in this video about how to do that, because I'm sure there are much more professional people out there, and I could try and find a video that talks about it and link it down below so that they can really describe well how to do it. But I really recommend those Kegel pelvic floor exercises. So far, I'm about 17 weeks into this pregnancy, and off and on, when I've done really physical things, I have started to feel that same feeling again, and I just immediately really start focusing on those breathing exercises with the Kegels, and I instantly feel a difference. So I really highly believe in it, and I really recommend it if you want to try your best to prevent pelvic floor issues, or if you have the pain, or just you're worried about having a prolapse. So that was the biggest reason I started going to a pelvic floor therapist, because I was just really getting afraid that I would have a prolapse, because I already felt like I was having so many problems. So those are my 3 tips. I hope that they are helpful. They have been so helpful for me so far anyway in this 3rd pregnancy, with feeling really better than I have with either of my last 2. And that's really exciting, because this is a very close pregnancy to my last. I actually went through postpartum this last time for a shorter amount of time than I was pregnant. So kind of crazy. But anyway, I want to tell you guys that stuff. I hope that those tips were a little helpful. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.